and the international and national viewers. This is Professor Dr. Zia Ahmed and offers you a very warm good evening from Pakistan. Our today's video is on a very short story that is The Only American from Our Village. This short story is written by Arun Joshi, and this is included in our syllabi of the BS English, especially in the module of post-colonial literature. And here is the small discussion on this short story. So the title is going to be The Only American from Our Village. The title goes to show that if first post-colonialism was more concerned about the white man, I mean the British people or the English people, but now the studies are focusing towards American people as well. And the label of being American includes neo-colonialism because this is the situation if we include American or America or American people as well into the post-colonial fields, because these Americans are not following the procedures, the patterns followed by the white British, but instead they are using those tactics and techniques with which they can keep on colonizing the minds, the behaviors, and the lives of different nations of the world. And that is why it is called as the new colonialism instead of post colonialism. But whatever the case may be, many of the roots, the consequences, and the effects upon colonized states are the same. So if you look at, in this sense, on this short story, The Only American from Our Village, you will be able to better understand the message of the writer Arun Joshi. Well, first of all, there's a character of Dr. Khanna in this short story. Dr. Khanna is a physicist who had migrated from his country, India, and had reached the Western world. This person is a very well read, educated, scholarly person, and he has been attending the University of Wisconsin, as the writer tells us. The writer also says that Mr. Khanna was recognized as a person who wears best possible dress, and he is well known with regard to his dressing as well, not only dressing but also for his learning, and therefore earned the title of very well learned and well dressed person at the campus. He was well reputed as well. Many of the people would invite him for lectures, and he would be heavily paid for these lectures. And that made him a famous lecture deliverer everywhere. He would earn money, he would earn fame, yet he was an Indian and was living in USA because of his education. And then he decided to come back to his own native country and to deliver a lecture there as well in order to establish his repute there as well and to earn even more kudos and honors from the people of India, and with an effort to show that he is the one who has made his mark in the world of science as well as in the world of learning and scholarship. He comes back and accepts the invitation and is ready to deliver his lecture and talk to the people in India as well. We have the second character in this short story, that is John, and she is wife of Dr. Khanna. Dr. Khanna's wife is American, she is white, and so she's very much different from the Indian people in general or the Eastern people or Asian people. She's different. She is also well educated person, and as a family they have two sons as well. They all decide to visit India. Not only Dr. Khanna comes there, but also the wife of Dr. Khanna and two of his sons, they have decided to visit India. And when they reach India, they are very warmly welcomed and they are admired as well. Not only Dr. Khanna is welcomed and admired, but also the other members of his family are also very much warmly welcomed by the people. And they too had brought gifts for the people of India, or especially the family of Dr. Khanna. They had brought with them Gillette razors, pop records, and neckties. The women and men get these gifts and are very happy. Some of the people who would not even use these gifts, they would keep it for the next coming generations or their teenage sons and daughters. They would keep them and would offer them as well. So arrival of Dr. Khanna and his wife and his family and the gifts proved a boon for their family people, and they were also feeling very happy. And as a result, the family of Dr. Khanna also feels happy in order to feel and recognize his own presence and his family's presence and the way he wanted the people to recognize him. All this is done, so that's why he's really very happy. And then, before we proceed further, we must see that the satisfaction of the recognition which Dr. Khanna had earned in USA was not that sufficient, and the satisfaction which he wanted to have by coming back to his roots, that was something which would pay him, and that is why he comes back in order to trace his roots back to the Indian society. And according to the postcolonial theory, any person who becomes ambitious enough to join the ranks of the colonizer and to become the part of the colonizer and to do things even better than the colonizer, that person will not be able to enjoy the privilege and the status of the colonizer. So, in order to feel better, in order to feel good, in order to relieve his feeling of tension and to find out his roots, according to the famous critic and theorist Frantz Fanon from Algeria, the person of the companionship of that colonizer has to come back to his own people in order to claim his rights there, in order to claim his roots there, and in order to claim the better and higher possible status by telling the people that he is one of them and he would like to represent them and he would like to have his connection established with his own people. So Dr. Khanna too comes in that way. So therefore the story carries number of aspects in it which make it post-colonial, and one of them is that aspect as we have just talked about. Now let's see the second portion of the story, which contains the discussion of one person who is a stamped paper seller for whom a stampfrosch, the word has been used. The stamped paper has been reduced to a stamp, and seller is translated in Hindi or Urdu as Farosh. So this is the character, the third character, important one in the story is the Stammfrosch, or he's the stamp paper seller. In fact, Radhe Mohan, the principal of a local college, had invited Dr. Khanna to deliver a lecture. And while he had delivered the lecture and he was walking with the principal towards his office in order to enjoy refreshments there and to claim his status there and to receive accolades from the people of the principal, he was stopped by one person, and that person was the Stammfrosch. This Stammfrosch was the person who lived in the village where the father of Dr. Khanna also lived there. And he, the man, Stammfrosch, had been the friend to Dr. Khanna's father, as both of them were the class fellows. So, in this way, Stammfrosch is a person who is very much helpful in tracing out the roots of the identity of Dr. Khanna and to remind him who actually he had been and to tell him how much he was integrated with the family, which he called father at that time. So Stammfrosch, who was the class fellow and the friend of the father of Dr. Khanna, stops him and tells the story, the complete story, which is about the life of the father of Dr. Khanna and the life of the Stammfrosch person, and how the father of Dr. Khanna died and became miserable in that life which he had to live in India, in poverty, in disease, in problematic situations. That all is told here. So the flashback of the tragedy of Khanna's father comes for us. So that can be taken as a direct contrast to the celebrations, to the happiness, to the winning of the honor and the goals of satisfaction by Dr. Khanna as a son. But if you go back to his life where his father had struggled for him, that father had lived a life of misery. So this misery and tragedy is in direct contrast to the thing which Dr. Khanna had achieved as a bright light. So the story of Stamfrosch is going to tell us what was working at the background of the success of a mind which was created and developed in which was created in India but was developed in the Western University and was now complaining the brightness of success. That same mind had the roots actually in India And as a result, we need to proceed further to find more things in the story. For example, if we have a little bit of the look at the story of which is told by the Stamfros, we will be able to see that there is a part of the story which should be numbered as, which should be titled as the ticket or a ticket. While the story of Dr. Khana's father is being told by the stamp Rose, he also tells that there was a time when Dr. Khana's father was very happy because he was waiting for the ticket, as his son had promised that he will be sending a ticket. That ticket would bring the father to meet his grandsons and to meet his own son and the daughter-in-law in America, and therefore he was very very happy, according to stamp frosh or stamp seller, stamp paper seller. The same thing had created the desires in him when he bought for himself a shaving apparatus to shave his face and bought for himself a shirt that he thought he would be wearing when he would go to USA to meet his son and his family. He was really very happy that he wanted to go there. And he, even if being a diseased person, was feeling himself vigorous enough and revived enough. And but ultimately, the things happened that the ticket would never come. There was no money with the son to send him and to share to him. Same lack of money, deficiency of money was also with the father, and so there was no money and there was no dream and there was no happiness for the father. The father, after this tragedy, became gradually a silent person, stopped speaking and stopped talking to anyone, in the same way as Estha, the young boy's character in the novel The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy, got silent after having a bad incident in his life. And same is the case here, that after receiving this shock, this disappointment, the colonized subject who was poor enough becomes, silent and is not talking to anybody. And then one more thing resembles with Esther of the God of Small Things, as Esther had long walks without purpose. Same was the case with this man, old man, who would like to cross the Cho. The Cho is a deserted place which is hot in the hot sun and cold in the cold sun, and it's a sandy place as well. But he would try to cross it many times in his life, naked without wearing any foot, and as a result, his foot had become painful, injured, dried up foot, and he would bear this pain again and again by crossing the Cho naked. Perhaps it was a kind of psychological problem with that man, as was the problem with Esther, that he got silent, that he started to do the things which would hurt him, pain him, but he wouldn't realize his pain at all. This same man, Stamfrosch person, talks about the school desk on which the names of both of Khanna's father and that of him was written. He takes them to the same desk and shows them the name written there. In this way, the solid proof is provided in order to say that whatever this stamped paper seller is saying is right. It is not wrong in any way. The proof is there, the desk on which the names are written. So, in this way, the proof is also provided of the soreness, of the painfulness, of the troubles which were not only mentally present with Khanna's father but was also physically present in the shape of the injured foot and dried up foot as well. So that was the story told by this stamped paper seller. So, Dr. Khanna and his family, when they boarded to Chicago, when they wanted to go back at that time, they were boarding one plane, and Dr. Khanna was quite silent. And after they boarded another plane for Chicago, there was silence. And, when the plane rises to Madison, I mean, in USA at that time also, he was silent and he was doing one thing, which was all of a sudden noticed by Mrs. John Khanna, and the thing was that he was constantly staring at his feet. He was looking at his feet. He was finding something in his feet. And if somebody noticed, somebody told him, "Why are you looking at that, foot or the feet of that person?" Mr. Khanna had no answer to that. He would just silently look at the feet of his own self. Probably he was remembering the feet of his father, which had become injured because of his behavior. He had plenty of money and he could have sent the ticket, or he could have come to meet his father, or he could have invited his father to meet him. But he gave pain by not doing any of the things to his father, and he became a semi mad person and would cover long distances without wearing any type of shoe. So the foot had become injured. Ultimately, this injured foot caused his death also. And that is why Dr. Khanna is realizing this thing unconsciously and is probably trying to internalize the same thing. And so is looking at his feet that his foot may not be of the same type of problem, or he is remembering and is thinking about the foot of his father. The writer goes to conclude, or the impression which comes out of the short story, that Dr. Khanna is looking at his feet. Perhaps he feels that he has been cursed because of the responsibility of the death which he has approached. So, in that way, the story ends when Dr. Khanna has this kind of psychological problem. But if we try to put some critical eye on the story, we will be able to see that the spaces which are suggested in this short story are that of USA and then it is India. So you can see that both parts of the story are present. The story is enacted in USA as well as in India. It travels from USA to India in the same way as the narration travels from USA to Pakistan and then from Pakistan to USA in the novel of Mohsen Hamid, the reluctant fundamentalist. Time setting in the story is not clearly told, but the colonial reverberation is present that when possibly British were here in India and colonization was at its peak at that time, the timing. So there is an echo of colonial system, of the colonial rule or the rule of the Raj at that time in India. So, in both ways, the time setting and the space setting have been provided to us. When we talk of the family of Mr. Khanna and that of the family of Mr. Khanna's parents and his wife and sons, we see that there is the two types of culture available. One is the American culture, other is the Indian culture. But these cultures are existing side by side, not only in the minds of the people, but also in the physical condition as well. Mr. Khanna is westernized and his family is also American, but the people he had left behind, they are still the Indian. So, in that way, there is cultural crossing present here. The same cultural crossing has caused hegemonization in the whole story because hegemonization makes the people accept the foreign culture, superior culture, as the nice one, good one, and it makes the people ready to give up and to dislike and not to say good things about their own culture, but rather to say good things about the superior culture. Here also the similar thing has happened in the story, so that is why it's the best kind of example of the hegemonization. There is the concept of empire writes back as well in the same story. The empire writes back needs that somebody should write from the formerly colonized country and expose the things which have been happening during the colonization and the impact of colonization as well. Here, a lot of impact of that colonization has been shown. First, in the Americanization of Dr. Khanna, and then the death of his father as well, and his effort to search out again and find out again his own roots of identity. Lots of local values have been talked about: help of the people for each other, friendship of the people with each other, and love, unconditional sincerity of the people of India for each other. And after that, you can also talk about the values of the marriage, of the welcoming of the guests, and of saying goodbye to the guests, and also respecting the individuals who come from outside as guests, all these values of the Indian system. So, in that way, indigeneity, the word is not rightly written, indigeity it is written. It may be taken as indigenousness, that is more present there. And this also goes to highlight the sufferings of the people which are colonized. These sufferings are represented from the death of the father of Dr. Khanna, and then the same effect comes to his foot as well, though psychologically. So, in this way, the sufferings of the colonized people have also been pointed out. All these things combined together make this short story, as the best piece of post-colonial literature by Joshi, and it should be read with that context as well. So, in that way, the story closes, and all the things we wanted to say about the story that has been closed. Basic concept is to find out that the story is a post colonial text and it can be taken as the new colonial text as well, with respect to the characters in it, and with respect to the themes used here, and with respect to the end of the story, The Only American from Our Village by Arun Joshi. So, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully, something has been understood, something has been elaborated, and something has become the part of our memories about the legacies of the colonial system and the conversion of that post colonial to new colonial system. Everything we have talked with respect to the characters, the plots, the subplot, and other things of the short story. So thank you for watching this. This is the end of this discussion on this short story. Hopefully, seeing you people in some next lecture. So far, thank you for watching. And if you like this, do not hesitate to hit the subscribe button or the like button. Thank you once again.